Welcome to Mystara for a look at a seldom discussed region just outside the known world, the Great Wastes, the largest desert known in Mystara in canon. This region is massive in scope, larger than the entirety of the known world. The desert is the home of the Nomads, that gives the module X4 its name. It's not a nice place to visit, and you definitely don't want to live there. But that's where we are headed today. I'm Mr. Welch, and remember to pack your sunscreen. The Great Waste is physically located west of Sind, starting at the end of Nebken Yelaka, or the Salt Swamp. Then it stretches about 850 miles across until you hit the Black Mountains near the city-state of Nova Svoga. North to south, it reaches from the Adravarmi Plateau near Windar and proceeds approximately 1,100 miles till you hit the Sea of Dread, making the whole region close to 1 million square miles. To put that in perspective, that's 4 times the size of Texas. The waste is not one solid desert, but instead of comprised of several deserts of differing types, along with some regions that qualify as savannas that hold the only actual cities. There's rolling hills to the west, several badlands that more than qualify for their name, and large salt flats where one of the only rivers originate from. There are 3 oases located in the west, fed by underground springs that provide some of the only potable water found on the surface. There are numerous caravan trails, and leaving them is usually very bad for you. Despite the absolute inhospitable nature of the region, it does possess a significant population native to the area in the Urduk. The best estimates from their neighbors is about 20,000 nomads found inside its borders, divided between 50 various tribes. While only a few of them serve the Master of Hul, and even fewer serve him willingly, their attacks against outsiders tend to give all of the nomads an unfair reputation for hostility. Those familiar with the nomads can recognize each tribe by their region, spotting the differences in dress and customs. Not all the nomads are friendly, but not all the hostile nomads serve the Master either. The Hastun Tribe lies between the northern part of Sind, south of the Adravarmi Plateau. They are the largest tribe, numbering around 4,000, and also one of the most prosperous. They're known for their fighting skill, largely due to their extensive knowledge of the land. Their territory is mostly steep hills, with meandering trails leading to their villages. Anyone foolish enough to try to attack them dies in a hail of arrows from dozens of ambush points all along the trail. Merchants that pay their tolls and trade with them in good faith are more than welcome. The Josta tribe is the only tribe of the area not of Urduk stock. They were once part of the nation of Josta, the long-dead nation that thrived along what is now the Silt River. When the river became salinated through natural means, the nation died. Now the thousands that are left live in the remains of their cities along the coast and fishing for sustenance. There's a large number of wizards in the tribe who still maintain the arcane library located in the ruins of their original capital. The Jerkuli tribe is truly nomadic. They range all over the Plain of Fire. Not that Plain of Fire, the desert called the Plain of Fire. They number around 1,000, but are one of the most important tribes of all of the Waste because of a small sect in their number called the Remembrancers. These dozen men or women possess perfect memory, and when a new one is discovered, they're instructed in all the secrets of the Great Waste. Everything from hidden water holes, known dangers, lost cities, secret trails, and emergency shelters are taught to the Remembrancers, who use it to guide their tribe safely through the worst parts of the desert. They are considered sacrosanct by all the nomads, because they're asked to be witnesses at agreements between tribes. The word of a remembrancer is unquestioned among the nomads as their only source of history. The Ancash tribe are known for their habit of wearing Corindon armor and riding horses. They aren't tied to the Thaitian Empire at all. Centuries ago, during a colonization attempt, the Thaitians were attacked by the Ancash. The Corindon cavalry protecting the settlers rode out to do battle with the much more numerous nomads, allowing the settlers to escape on ship at the cost of their own lives. The Ancash were so impressed by the abilities of their foes, they took up their arms and armor and roamed the coasts, raiding caravans and centuries-old Thaitian army. This makes them the only heavy cavalry unit in the Wastes, which is something they take pride in. The Hanti tribe live in the foothills west of Lake Hali, along the banks of the River Khanda. While they're spread out along the riverbed, they use an old Nithian city as their only permanent settlement. They of course believe that their ancestors built the city centuries ago, but they have little interest in its history. The Khanda is normally just a small stream until the start of the brief wet season when it overflows its banks for several weeks. The Hanti's irrigation system manages to trap large amounts of this water for later use, allowing them to farm for months. The irrigation system is ancient, hinting that its construction was the work of the Nithians. The Hagiarchy of Hul considers the nomads a source of troops as well as slaves to mine the mineral wealth of the desert. Some tribes have allied with the Master's forces, such as the large Minket tribe. They willingly converted to the worship of Bosgadan, the patron of Hul, and they're used as the bully boys for the Master in the Great Waste. The greedy Corbett tribe has largely sided with the Master because he pays them well. The Portik tribe was largely destroyed in a war with the Black Raja of Jabul. The Master offered to help them with their vengeance in exchange for fealty, but so far has kept them on a short leash. The large Dar tribe serves the Master against their will, as he sent a force of orcs to threaten their women and children should they disobey him. The Dar stifle against the master, but unless somebody frees their families, they have to do what he wants. The Jenga and Komit tribes are the slaves of the master, forced to mine the iron and precious metals from their nearby mountains. The work is deadly, and unless they're freed soon from their labors, the tribes are in danger of being worked to death. Those are some of the tribes of note. I wasn't going to cover all of them, since a large number of them are just small numbers of herders or merchants with no actual background. Along with the nomads, you can find Nithian ruins, elven ruins, dwarven miners, and all sorts of humanoids. Most of these are found on the outskirts of the Great Waste, obviously, as few live in the interior of the deserts, and even fewer live there willingly. Most of the nomads are tied to a source of water, so they keep their wandering near to it. The Great Waste offers numerous areas for exploration, or at least points of interest. It's known that the Nithian Empire dominated the area during its height, but little remains of their once great cities. The Wastes are quickly to reclaim anything man-made. Most of the ruins are found in the foothills or near the mountains, but these are mostly individual buildings. The nomads, strangely, have almost no interest in these buildings. They don't give much value in ancient stone ruins, as the buildings offer little help in survival, making them almost useless to the nomads. One of the most important locations in all the wastes is the twin oasis of Yat and Ardat, located in the eastern half of the Sind Desert. Yat is the smaller of the two oases, being the northernmost. It is a lake about 100 feet across, lined with olive trees and of little use outside of a watering hole. The reasons why the nomads don't consider it of great importance is Ardat, the southern oasis, just 20 miles south. Ardat is a natural lake a mile across, and for most nomads, it's the most fresh water they've ever seen. It is neutral ground, even the master's forces obey this law. The oasis is surrounded by merchants, traders, and mercenaries looking for work. There is even a temple to Bozgadan built nearby, though only a few nomads visit it. The Bitter Waters is located in the Plain of Fire, the northern desert of the Wastes. It's a source of fresh water, but it's also one of the most dangerous locations in the area. The waters come from a volcanic spring, which, while foul-tasting, is potable. The biggest problem getting to the water is the sulfuric vapors that can kill long before you reach it. Nomads have learned to wrap their mouth and nose with thick cloth to filter out the fumes long enough to gather water. Adding to the danger is the large number of fire elementals and salamanders that can be found guarding the spring. The other great oasis in the waste is the Kessrat Oasis, near the border of Sind. It's actually several lakes found in a palm forest, stretching for miles in every direction. It's one of the most strategic locations in all of the wastes, and you can find at least 3 tribes here at any given time. There's also an old fort of Sind construction, evidence of their previous attempts at expansion. The fort is a ruin, but the master is rebuilding it to dominate the area with the use of humanoids. Fights between the nomads and humanoids are common, but the Hulian forces keep their humanoid slaves from engaging in actual combat, as that could turn the nomads completely against them. The Great Pass is one of the only ways through the Black Mountains that border the waste to the west. Despite the name, it's a section of connected canyons rather than a single pass. The way through the mountains is quite dangerous, as it's easy to get lost, and all manners of bandits, monsters, and hazards await those that stray from the trail. Getting through the pass without a guide is practically impossible. No maps exist, and due to rock slides and other natural hazards, the geography can change overnight. Even hiring a guide is risky, as many are paid to lead their party right into an ambush by waiting brigands. The dangers of the Great Waste are numerous, and not just from the heat and the Master's forces. There's natural threats like sinkholes that can swallow a horse and rider in seconds. In certain areas, the deserts have formed over a salt dome that look no different on the surface, but they can't carry the weight of a man, resulting in the poor victim breaking through the surface and falling hundreds of feet to his doom. Poisonous fumes and toxic water bespoil would-be oases, killing those with a false sense of hope. Worse is the hordes of monsters that make up the largest population in the Great Waste. This is where you will find most of the dragoons in Mystara. There's also the elemental creatures known as the sand ghosts that gather in the deepest parts of the desert, aimlessly marching in the tens of thousands. While individually they're harmless, the electricity they generate in numbers can kill from a distance. Numerous phoenixes are known to make their lairs in various parts of the waste, and their appearance is considered good luck by the nomads. The monsters that live in the waste tend to be more dangerous in the region because of the hostility of it. Many adopt new tactics, like the hydras that lay in wait under the sand to ambush new prey that approach. While the Great Waste isn't all desert, there's very little in the area that isn't trying to kill you. Fresh water is scarce outside the few oases. Due to volcanic activity, much of the water tends to be acidic in nature, unsuitable for drinking. Many of the lakes you find will have a high salt content, including the one that produces the Silt River. Most caravans only travel at night due to the high temperatures, and getting lost is usually a death sentence. That concludes the Great Waste. There wasn't much in terms of canon lore. Much of this came from Sir Loin's excellent articles on the Vaults of Pandius, so they're canon now. The Great Waste is where you can spawn all sorts of adventures, and also try to kill your characters if they get uppity. Next week we are dressing to the nines with Darrican's Grand Masquerade. But until next time, remember, if you walk without rhythm, you won't attract the worm.